gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies. Rock it.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the second part of the show. So this is all around passion, perseverance, and performance, right? So, how many of you have heard of this thing? Follow your passion. Yeah? How many of you are following your passion right now? What? Get out. Seriously. Jeez, I'm surprised. Right, moving on, part 3. But there's two camps here, right? The first camp is following your passion is a load of BS, and it's rubbish. It's like, do what you love, that kind of crap. I'm kind of in that camp. And I'll tell you why, and I'll talk around Steve Jobs in a second. Did you want to jump in there? No? Okay, cool. So having said that, then there's the other camp, which is, well, if you're not passionate about what you do, then how can you convey the fact that this is really cool, and Secrets of Scale, and Matt Brancher, and Eric as a coach, and Howard with this massive telco company. Okay, whatever. But let's talk around it. Following your bliss, true or false? Load of crap?
Nuance. So I'm a huge believer in duality. And I think that there's a time and a place for everything, and there's a specific situation for everything. And, we talk about take massive action, and there's a time for that. And there's a time to take small action. And there's a time to follow your passion. Or you might be the kind of person who's lucky enough that your passion coincides with something that makes you money. But you might be someone that doesn't align with. And it's fine. That's the thing. It's fine. Become sensitive to the nuance. Stop thinking that everything is black and white. I think we always read these articles and it's the 5 ways to do this or the 3 hacks to do this. And we think that in between there's this one golden thread that's going to unlock everything for us. But really it's a lot of small things and a lot of things that are contradictory, And I think if we look at successful people, they have contradictory lives all the time. They'll say one thing, do another, because they know that at certain times you need to apply a certain skill that you might have said before wasn't necessary, or a certain mindset that you thought before wasn't necessary. So nuance, that's my answer to that.
Howard, what are your views?
I think you have to be passionate about life. And I think you have to wake up every morning and say, I'm going to have a passionate, full day. And part of that is going to be work. And if work feeds that passionate part of your soul, fantastic. But maybe you do work and you have a good time and you work with good people. And maybe you go and you work in a soup kitchen in the evening because that's another one of your passions. I think by the time you take stock, whether it's every night or every week or every month or once a year, you just have to look back at that period and say, I was passionate. But, I spent some time doing my law articles and then working as a lawyer, waking up every morning thinking, I hope today is going to be Saturday so I don't have to go into work. And I will never, ever do that again. I would rather clean toilets with passion than ever go into a job that I actually hate. And, today I think I'm unemployable.
Oh, yeah.
But I have to find meaning in what I do. And let's face it, not all of our jobs are fantastic and perfect all the time. There's a lot of crap that you deal with all the time. And, the Americans, it's an American term we don't use here. But Tom, you Americans say you got to eat shit sometimes. And unfortunately, you do. But, there's always a bigger picture. And you have to see things in perspective, but I think there are many aspects to our personality. If we judge ourselves only by our work and only by our careers, and we don't judge ourselves by whether at the end of the day we're truly happy as individuals, then I think we failed as individuals. We have to be well-rounded, decent people, and that's what makes a difference, I think.
Yeah, cool. So I've got Tom, do you remember the doctor story that you told me the first time you were on my show? Remember when the data thing and the doctors? Do you remember that one?
My crisis?
Yeah, that's the one. I want you to tell that story in a second because I think it's pretty much the punchline of this whole passion debate, right? But before we get there, I want to share the stats, okay? So right here, I've got this graph, and it says passions versus jobs. This is a real piece of research that was done in America. And so basically 80% of students, right, said that they were passionate about sports, arts, or music. 80%. How many do you, just as the show of hands, how many of you think more than 50% actually followed through on those passions? More than 50. How about less than 50? How about less than, okay, geez, that's everybody. Less than 25%? Less than 10%? 10% followed through. So you've got 80% of people, human beings, right, passionate about stuff, really dig sports, really dig coding, really dig cricket, really dig whatever the case is. But they don't follow through.
Can I tell you, one of the people who did recruitment at one of the banks told me the story, that they said they go onto university campuses and they go, and one of the main questions asked by students, why should I join your bank? What are you doing for the underprivileged? What are you doing to uplift people? And this is now a key thing, and they have to explain to each person. And then they come join the bank and they say, great, join our program now in uplifting. Come with us into the townships and teach school. And none of them are interested. They want to be associated with something, but they don't want to do it themselves. And there's this major disconnect in all our in all our minds between the image sometimes we want to project and the people we truly are. And I think if we can narrow maybe that gap, we'll all come out as better people.
Yeah, love that, love that. So I want to come to you, Tom. So Tom was on my show, when was it, like a year ago, roughly. And so we chatted for like an hour and a half just around life, actually, which was really refreshing because it's usually hardcore business stuff. And so Tom was recounting the stories. He was selling a medical instrument, and I'm going to leave it there. And you had a sales guy with you, do you remember? And you're presenting data, and then a whole bunch of doctors walked into the room. And so that was the setup. But basically, this was like a make or break moment, right? So I'm going to leave it, hand over to Tom. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, so... And at the end, I'll put some additional perspective on it based on what both Eric and Howard said about tension and passion and nuance and paradox, because I think I learned the distinction through this experience. But let me explain what happened. So I was the president of a startup medical device company, and we had developed a product that could help people with nocturnal hyperventilation, which means they weren't breathing deeply enough during sleep. Sleep apnea is a big part of that syndrome. And I was presenting to the leading physicians in the world that wrote about, studied, and treated this disorder at a big university teaching hospital in the States. And our sales rep, who was actually selling the product through a distribution company, he set the whole thing up. The meeting was going to happen at noon, so he bought sandwiches and had them all on the table. And I was standing up front. To give you an idea how long ago it was, I was up front with an overhead projector with those, those clear pieces of plastic that you write on and drop onto this overhead. And right at noon, all the doctors scrambled into the room. They were all dressed in their physician scrubs, and they had their stethoscopes dangling on their necks, and they sat down and they opened up the sandwiches, and there were documents in front of them, which were the results of clinical trials that we had done with the device. And I was there to explain at how great the device was, because it treated all these people and took care of these patients. So I go through the whole presentation, And when I get done, I look around the room, and the leading physician in the world is sitting there, and he's staring at me. And he says to me, Mr. Asacker, can I ask you a question? And I'm waiting for some technical question. I mean, and I've got everything. There's nothing he can throw at me. I said, what is it, doctor? He said, are you the president of this company? And I listened, he knew I was, because that's how I announced myself. And I think it said it right on the front of the document, Tom Asacker, president of the company. So I said, uh-oh, this is a problem. I said, yeah, doctor, I am. I'm the president. And he said, and you came to my teaching institution with such shoddy clinical data? I looked around the room. There were some people that were feeling bad for me, but I mean, my heart was racing. I could not figure out what was going on. The sales guy that I came with, I think he crawled under a table to hide or something. That's how bad this was. Because if I walked out of there like that, it was over. We were closing down. I had 30 people employed in a big manufacturing facility. It was over. I had to go home and shut it all down. And I'm thinking at the speed of thought here, what is he talking about? The data is good data. I went to one of the most reputable teaching institutions to get the data. And what I realized is that big medical companies, they spend tens of millions of dollars studying thousands of patients. Not that that makes the data better. It's just more. And when you're at an elite institution, those people want you to treat them like they're elite. Why don't you have tens of thousands of patients? And we couldn't afford that as a startup company. So we did what the minimum was required by the FDA to pass approval of the device. Anyway, I don't even know what happened to me. I'm guessing my inner spirit, my essence, the universe just took over, because I don't even remember how the words came out of my mouth. But I looked at the doctor and I said, doctor, do me a favor. And I remember that the entire pause with all those thoughts lasted about like 2 or 3 seconds. I said, doctor, do me a favor. Turn to patient 10. So he opened up this document, and it's a bunch of medical, it's polysomnography. It looks to a novice like squiggly lines, oxygen saturation, look like heartbeat, all of these lines. All the other doctors opened up and looked at patient number 10. Now, to preserve patient confidentiality, you never tell anyone's names. So I said, so he opened it. Here are the words that came out of my mouth. I said, doctor, do you see those squiggly lines? Now, I mean, who says that, right? To a leading physician. Do you see those squiggly lines? But that's how upset I was that he was focusing on data and numbers and quantities. I said, those squiggly lines are Jim Olson. So I told the patient's name because I knew who it was. I said, Jim Olson lives in a little white house with a beautiful little picket fence, 2 adorable little girls that love their father, a wife that adores her husband. I said, no product in the marketplace could help Jim Olson. Our product saved Jim Olson's life. And I said, in the minute squiggly lines and data mean more to you than people's lives, that's the day you should get out of medicine. And I pointed at all the other doctors. And I said, and you all should get out of medicine. I picked up my stuff. I turned around, and like my knees started to collapse. I had like sweat pouring down my back. The guy underneath the table, I had to go get him and drag him out, and we left. I thought, this is it. It's over. That physician refused to sit on any board of any medical company because he didn't want a conflict of interest. He called me after that meeting and agreed to sit on my board of advisors. In every hospital I walked into to do a demonstration, all the nurses and all the staff said to me, are you the guy that told the doctor if he cared more about numbers than people's lives, he should get out of medicine? And I turned into a rock star from that point forward. All because of that. All because of that.
Yeah, I love that story.
Matt, it's a completely irrelevant story, but I have to tell it. I used to run a business called HealthBridge. We started as a startup, a joint venture between MedScheme, Discovery Health, and Dimension Data. And we were going to launch online real-time transactions between doctors and medical insurers. And so we're traveling the country, presenting to doctors right around the country, and we hired the Sheraton Hotel in Pretoria to do a launch. And we have like 100 doctors coming into the Sheraton Hotel, and we're about to do the presentation, and the computer, the laptop computer attached to the projector, dies. And so we turn to our sales manager and say, can we borrow your laptop to do this presentation? The 100 doctors are sitting there. He says, sure, plugs it in, projection on the wall. And as we plug it in, his porn starts playing in front of 100 doctors. You know something? We made more sales that night than we did at any other launch we did.
Wow. Okay, cool. That was irrelevant. I can make that work. Watch. Here we go. I can make it work. So just recounting and echoing what both Tom and Howard have just told us. Okay. It's a great segue into fear, right? So the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, like the fear that we're just not enough to build a scale business, right? We're just not good enough. You go through one too many breakups and, quite easily you can have that kind of thing running through your head. So we all have fear, right? It's the one thing that's like a unifying thing with everybody here tonight. And if we let it, fear can keep us locked up in the prison of like ordinary, right? And if you think around like Elon Musk, and I keep using him as an example, just because everybody knows this, but you'll know people in your own network and in your own lives that are like examples of this, where they break through that fear, like they do things despite. Do you know what I'm saying? So instead of letting it like confine you, they actually leverage fear as an emotion to create great things. And in our case, I'd love to get your view, Howard, around how do you work with fear, like as an asset, not something that constrains you in any way as an entrepreneur.
I once asked the best salesperson I knew, someone called Chetan Gochalya, known as Gosh, to come train my sales team. And he walked in, and I will never forget those first words he said. He said to them, if you can walk into a bar and pick up a girl, you can sell. And I looked at my sales team, I thought, oh fuck, we're in trouble now. But I think you reach a stage in your life, I think, for some people it's in their 70s where other people's opinions no longer matter and you feel you can say whatever you want. And maybe some of us reach it a little earlier on in your life where you can separate the person from the rejection and you say, I actually don't give a fuck. I'm going to go in because I believe in what I'm going to do. And if they say no, well, I've been rejected in a bar before, and this is an issue of numbers. It comes down to statistics. I'm going to keep on hitting on someone until they say yes. And, if you can have that approach, ultimately, that's what you need in order to succeed.
That is actually a true story. And the lesson is also true. When I was single, just like Ibiza, it's just the law of numbers. Legit. Let's go to you, Eric, if you don't mind. How do you personally overcome fear? I mean, you built Better Man. I mean, how many people do you have in that program now? It's crazy.
Yeah, about 18,000.
Sorry, just say again?
Yeah.
18,000?
18,000, yeah.
I mean, that's insane, right? So, how did you overcome fear in building that Better Man platform?
So I think the first thing, obviously, is to identify what kind of fear are we dealing with, because there are many different types. And so fear of the unknown, for example, is probably one of the biggest ones, and in many cases, the underlying factor for many other fears. Which incidentally is why we're always looking for certainty, right? Like we're always trying to predict the future because we want certainty, because certainty makes us feel good. So I think identifying that fear is number one. And then number two is to actually just be okay with fear. Like why, again, I feel like we need a more human approach just to entrepreneurship. It's fine to bash through things. I think it's a cool approach. But there's also, it's like real, like everyone has fear. We have different fears. So when you're starting up a business, there's a different fear to when you have a big business. I spoke to someone 2 weeks ago. They're doing R1 million a month. Their biggest fear, losing it all. You know, like they are doing so well, like just success on success on success. But the biggest fear is I'm going to lose it. And so fear is always there. Like it's just a part of human nature. We are human beings, and that's okay. And so I think what's important is for us just to deal with it, to be okay with our fear, to live with it, and to move on with it. And how do you do small things then that help to bolster that? So if you are scared, once you've identified it, if you know that you're scared of an uncertain future, what can you do, even if it's small, that makes that future a little bit more certain? So I think it's number one, being okay with it. It's a passenger on the ride, and it's okay. And then number two is, how can you create more certainty or whatever you need?
Cool. Do you want to jump in there, Hod?
I just want to quote Ronnie Aptirka, one of the country's greatest entrepreneurs ever, who said, the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who jumps out of an aeroplane with a bag full of silkworms, hoping they're overachievers.
Oh my God. Okay. Anything else? Just keep doing it, like another one. Okay, cool. I've actually used that. I remember that from the first time you were on the show. I've used that a few times. It's a winner because it's so true, right? But I want to just kind of extend a little bit more around fear, because oftentimes you start to say no to things. And Rich Mulholland, on the first event, or part of the Secrets of Scale event series, he said something really amazing, which stuck with me. He said, every time you say no to something as a business owner, you write a check to regret. And when you get to the end of your life, at some point, you're going to have to cash that check in. And I just thought that was just such a really awesome way to basically illustrate or potentially counter this limiting, or I don't know, belief, but like dealing with fear itself, like understanding that it's okay. One, two, like you have to act despite it. You know what I mean? And I think to your point, Eric, around startups, like that's just the scariest place in the world when you start out. But then like a year in, it's less scary. And then 2 years, it's less scary. And then you just don't care. It's like a consistent undercurrent that you just deal with. Do you know what I mean? The interesting thing, though, is that we often make excuses, right? And it's like, going back to your point, Eric, it's comfortable. And there's no more dangerous place in my experience than being successful, because it's a breeding ground for mediocrity. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like you've achieved that thing, and now, I mean, that's probably the biggest reason why I did Secrets of Scale, because I talk to entrepreneurs who are successful, and they're part of YPO, and they're part of EO, and these guys are doing like hundreds of millions. Do you know what I'm saying? And for me, it was always interesting to explore the dynamic between those who kind of build a lifestyle business, or maybe employ 5 people, consulting firms, small consulting firms, versus those that actually build really big fucking companies, you know? And when I talk to these guys, and I've interviewed like over 100 of these guys, billionaires from numerous continents or whatever. And the thing that I noticed was that the difference between those who build really big businesses and those that actually build, small ones, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to scale, it actually comes down to one thing. And that one thing is hunger. They're hungry for it. They never settle. It's like success is not part of their, it's not part of their dictionary. So for me, like success is an aspiration. It's not an end state. It's not a goal. I mean, what are your views on that? Let's actually bring Tom in. What are your views on that?
Yeah, Jerry Seinfeld once said that success is the enemy of comedy. And what he was saying was, and this goes to Eric's point directly, what he was saying was, once you have this routine that makes people laugh, you think now that you have basically eliminated uncertainty. So if you come up on the stage and you do that routine again and again and again and again and again and again, you'll continue to get laughs. Well, you know what? That's bullshit, because you're not the only comedian out there that's trying to get laughs, right? So this idea that just because you're doing something over and over and over again, that provides you with a level of certainty, that is an illusion, a complete illusion. There is nothing about the future that's certain but one thing. And if you want to know that one thing, because I can predict the future, I know what the future of everyone in the room is, and me, because I keep it right in front of me at my desk here. See, I'll show it to you. Look. So I've got a skull, and underneath I wrote soon, to make me remember that life isn't about getting someplace. Life is about living it fully while I'm here. So I don't look back and say, I was comfortable. Wow, I had a great life. I was comfortable. No ups, no downs. Everything was cool. That's like a roller coaster that just goes straight ahead. Now, if you want that, that's cool. There are people, a lot of people, that's what they want. They want a merry-go-round. Cool. I don't want a merry-go-round. I want to live life and suck the most out of it that I possibly can while I'm here. And the only way to do that is to know that one thing is certain. You're going to die. Anyone else that tells you that they know what's going to happen 6 months or a year from now, they're liars. No one knows what's going to happen. This is the most dynamic world we've ever lived in, right? We don't even know what these two guys are doing right today, talking, about North Korea, US. I mean, really? I don't even want to think about it. All I want to think about is, am I living as fully and passionately as I can? Which brings back around this do what you love and the money will follow. That's bullshit too. How about do what you love and you'll love what you do? Oh boy, that's an interesting one, right? That seems to work. That makes sense mathematically. There's no guarantee that money's going to follow. To the woman out there that has the hoop thing, my daughter is an expert hula hooper. My daughter was paid by fish to hula hoop while she was on stage, but she can't pay her bills. She can't have her lifestyle at the same time. So she does hula hooping. She works at a company. She does a little of this. She dances. Look, it's live your life the way you want to live your life, because it's no one else's life. And everything that anyone thinks about you or what you're doing and your choices, that's none of your business what they think. It's irrelevant. Get it out of your mind and do what the hell you want to do. Period. Period.
Yeah, clap it up. Another one is like, we're all trying to work out life, you know what I mean? See, I told you we were going to talk about business too much. But we're trying to work life out, right? It's kind of like the whole thing. And as we're trying to work the thing out, we make mistakes, we fail forward, we learn, hopefully. We don't make the same mistakes twice. And we're going to talk around that in a second. But no one ever really works life out, ever. Do you know what I'm saying? No one ever in the history of life has ever worked life out. And and you shouldn't really care. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, to your point, Tom, it's like, it's just take every day. And that's one thing even in my own business, right? Like, I'm just like, push, build hunger the whole time. And so and it's like, I don't actually take the time to appreciate things as much as I should. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a ridiculously simple thing to do. But if I don't appreciate the fact that there's 70, 80 people here, and I don't appreciate the fact that this is a success, right? And I should be proud of that. But if I'm always thinking and future pacing, or no, next time it's got to be 300 and 600, and you know what I mean? I've got to get bigger guests or panelists, whatever the narrative is. Like, in my view, like, I've failed. Do you know what I mean? Because you're caught in the future, you don't actually appreciate the journey. It's like success isn't the destination, it's actually how you approach every day and appreciate things every day. And it's interesting in the context of scale, because it's all go. Like, I've got to go, I've got 100 million rand to burn through, and my investors want 20x. You're not exactly smelling the roses as you do that, right? You're hiring. You like leasing offices, and by the time you move in, you need bigger offices. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a different type of thing. And I don't know. I just wanted to share that personal thing. It's like, and I can.
Our culture is perpetuating this illusion with the phones and the apps and the measure this and look at that and how many followers and who read this. And this is why everybody feels unfulfilled. They're checking this bullshit constantly. And it's the same thing it's no different than if I find the thing, the what, then I can be passionate, like the kids. If I can just find that one thing, the sport, the art, the music, that's not life. Life is about what you bring into what you do that turns on other people's lives, that makes some kind of difference. So I don't care if you've got 50 people in a room or 3. If one of these people walks away and changes other people's lives, you've done everything you're supposed to be doing. That's how it works. We're getting lost in some kind of idea that life is something to figure out and it's something in the future and maybe someday we'll get there. No, this is where you're going to get. This is it. That's how it works. Are you enjoying it? Are you making a difference? Are you being passionate? Are you being your authentic self in the meantime? If you are, then you have a great life. Period. I don't care what the number of followers or anything else says to you. You've got a wonderful life and you should be appreciative of it.
Cool. Love that.
So, Tom, isn't it correct that maybe the new definition of success is when we actually live the lives that we project on social media?
yeah, except we're all using that as a marketing tool instead of a way of saying who we are and what we're about. I mean, Bob Dylan gave the perfect definition of success. He said, if you can go to bed at night, get up in the morning, and during the day, do what the hell you want to do, you're a success. That's it. Do what you want to do during the day, go to bed at night, get up in the morning, do what you want to do during the day. You are now a successful human being, period. Because the funny thing is, when I ask people, somebody said to me once, do you do anything that you don't want to do? And I said, no, not anymore. I don't. No, I figured it out. I don't do anything I don't want to do. They said, that doesn't even make sense. And I said, no, what doesn't make sense are all you people are doing things you don't want to do. I don't understand how that is called living. It doesn't make sense. We're hypnotized into believing that life is about doing shit you don't want to do so that someday you can relax. Someday doesn't come.
Yeah.
It doesn't come. Go look at the biographies of Howard Hughes and go look at the people that accumulated, and tell me, did they settle into this wonderful life? No, they turned into freaks trying to figure out how to slice up a cake into a perfect square. I mean, think about it. You can't let that obsessive mind grab you. You got to let your internal spirit, the one that wants to help people, that wants to engage with people, that makes a difference with people, that's a mentor to their employees and to young people, that's actually making a difference and changing lives. That's the only way we're going to improve in the world. We're not going to improve by the government telling us what to do. We're going to improve individual by individual and making a difference in people's lives. That's it.
Yeah, I love that. My definition of success is, who did you become? Because you're always becoming something. It's like, even if you're a 5-man smallish business, and you're going to be, it's like the business that you are now, but there's always the business that you're becoming. And so in that process, even as people, like, how would you become someone? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, who I was when I was in my 20s, he was a dick. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm becoming someone of actual value. And so for me, that's one of the benchmarks. Like, who did you become at the end of the day? And then the second thing, to your point, Tom, is like, who did you help? Do you know what I'm saying? Because like, that for me is the only thing that ever makes me happy personally. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I object to this. Who did I become? Because there's only one time you measure that. That's the time when you become the skull on Tom's desk. Like, it's an ever shifting goal. What you want to become now is not where you wanted to be. And you've never stopped and said, okay, I've reached my goal. I'm now a success. I can give up. I mean, that's nonsense. We evolve all the time. We want to be better people all the time. That's what makes us human.
The only challenge also there is to say that we always make mistakes, right? So I don't know, how many of you read Ray Dalio's book, Principles? Anyone? Okay, you all need, okay, of course you have, mates. You all need to read that book. All of you guys on YouTube, thanks for sticking around. Go and get this book. It's basically, Ray Dalio has built this company called Bridgewater. It's one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. Okay. And he's basically consulted to like the Dalai Lama, to all the richest of the rich. And he wrote this book all around principles. And it's like, how do you make decisions as a human being, regardless of whether you're trying to build a business or scale business, small business, or whatever the case is. And basically he's got this really interesting formula, which is pain and reflection equals progress. Because if you don't take the time out to reflect on the mistakes that you've made, take the lesson from that, write that lesson down, and he's literally written down all these principles, he calls them. So, and the point being is that you shouldn't make the same mistake twice, right? So, and he also says that only 5 scenarios ever actually come up in business, ever. It's the same 5 things, just manifested differently, but it's the same thing. And he says if you can work out and be aware of when these 5 things appear in your business as you start to scale it, like you'll be able to scale it far quicker and make decisions that truly do serve the benefits of the people that work for you. It was just a really cool thing to check out. So guys, I want to talk about yeah, go ahead.
If people don't want to read the book, Ray just released a 35-minute YouTube animated video on his principles. So you can do that instead.
Cool, amazing. Yeah, cool.
I'm sure he's also found a way to get people to read your book at no royalties to you.
Hey, look, you know what? Everybody that makes billions can, in retrospect, create any principles they friggin' want, right? So, I mean, you've got to have your own principles. You've got to have your own, like you said, Howard, you're trying to improve yourself continuously. You're flowing. There is no there, because you never get there. As a matter of fact, you don't want to get there, do you?
Yeah. Cool. So just a quick one on performance. So I'd like to bring Eric in, if that's cool. So the one thing that we don't ever really talk about is our health, right? So there's a really cool program called Exec Care. You guys should all do it and check it out. It's basically a 6-hour health assessment. I've done it. It's crazy. As a Mesh member, you get 20% off this thing, but it promises you it'll change your life, because it'll basically be 6 doctors going, here's where you're fucking up. Okay. And as business owners, I can promise you should totally be aware of the thing it's your engine room, right? Your physical health and also your mental health. So why don't we, or let me rephrase, how do we become high performance business athletes in your view? Like, where does one start?
So I think physiologically is that's the best place to start, right? And you guys can speak to Rob sitting right there, because he runs a big gym. So afterwards, go and speak to him about how do you optimize your physiology. But it's again, I think we always look for those silver bullets when it's just so basic. Eat, sleep, hydrate. Like, are you doing those basic things that support your physiology? You can't perform when you're tired. You can't perform when you are hungry. We latch onto these things. So I think just to start getting the basics right, eat, sleep, hydrate. I think what you mentioned earlier about pain plus reflection, it's such a busy world. It's so busy, and we are always connecting with something or someone. And the reflection part of that is what's really important to me. Are we spending time actually sitting with ourselves? Because it's quite uncomfortable. And when you do that, a lot of the things that we've spoken about tonight actually starts unfolding. The beliefs, the fears, because actually now you are on your own. But solitude, again, duality. Solitude can be this amazing space in which you reflect on what's happening in your life and where you want to go and what you want to accomplish. But it can also be a space where anxiety and depression gets amplified. Right? Because you are on your own and you are just diving deeper into this rabbit hole. So I think it's important to create that space in your life where you are still and it's just you, but that it's focus time. And, when you read about self-development, I think a lot of what comes through is that you are meditating, you are journaling, and solitude creates that space for you. And that's why coaching is, I think, a great avenue for people to explore, because coaching is all about holding space. That's why mastermind groups is a great thing to explore, because it holds a space for you. So now you're getting your physiology aligned, and then you're also creating space for you to think and organize your thoughts. And I think when those two combine, that's when you ultimately get performance.
How many of you meditate? Hands up. Okay, I promise you, if you're not meditating, totally meditate. Best app I found is an app called Calm. It's expensive. It's about 1,000 Rand, but it's amazing, right?
There's a free version as well, hey?
Yeah, but if you want
trial,
cool shit, it's free, try it out. But it's worth investing in. I promise you, if you don't get in that headspace, it can really affect you. Do you meditate hard?
I was in Japan a few weeks ago, and I did my first meditation class in a Buddhist monastery in the mountains of Kyosan, taken by monks. I would be.
Where did they take you? Hang on.
I would,
you were kidnapped?
They also do tours of a cemetery that's 1,201 years old at night. Amazing experience. But I am the antithesis of everything that you preach. I freak out in quiet time. I don't believe in quiet time. It's me. I understand my own personality. I find quiet time disruptive in my life.
Why?
I find it unproductive.
Why?
Because I can think as I do. I think we're all made up differently, and I appreciate there's a group of people, and this entire idea that, work-life balance. Well, when you're starting a business,
It's work balance.
absolutely. Do you want to be successful or not? Do you want to go to gym, or do you want to be working at 3 o'clock in the morning because you need to get a presentation out or a proposal out? And the answer is, if you want to be successful, you should be at work at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm terribly sorry, but that's what creates success. So there will be a time in your life where you can add in the gym and you can add in the quiet time and the meditation. But, let's face it, that meditation may help you get into the right mindset if you need it, but I don't think everyone needs it. I think our personalities are all made up in a very different way. And I've worked out for my own personality how I relax. And it's not through meditation. I found my hour sitting in the monastery meditating enormously stressful. But I was in a go-kart dressed up as Super Mario speeding around the streets of Tokyo in Mario Karts. And that's unbelievable time that inspires me and energizes me, that when I get back into the office, I'm 10 times more productive because I've had those life experiences, those sparks that really drive me to be able to go do something more, to work now, to do something more enthusiastic. So I don't belittle or bemoan those people who require the quiet time or who are capable of journaling, but that's just not me.
Yeah, exactly. I use it when I need it, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't do it all the time because you have to do it all the time. To your point, there's no black and white in this. But I do
Also,
find it, yeah.
I think people misunderstand meditation a lot of the time, right? Because meditation, the connotation is Buddhist monk sitting in a temple, lotus position. That's what we think meditation is. Meditation is continued thought. What's meditation? When you meditate on something. Right? So even when you're contemplating a problem, you are meditating on that problem. When you are holding a thought in your head about who you want to be, you are meditating on who you want to be. So meditating isn't sitting down and just saying, for 5 minutes, I'm going to be still. It's one form of meditation. One of the biggest Buddhist teachers said that if you go running in the forest and that's where you are and you're with your breath and you're with the running, that's meditation as well. So I think we also need to understand what is meditation, right?
I'm Howard Saxton, and I'm with the SciComm group of companies. Look, it was an enormously intense few hours, but some fantastic questions, some really interesting topics, and it's amazing to get just a lot of different perspectives on the same topic from both South Africa and from around the world. I love the audience. I think there's so many people in the audience with so many different ideas, so many different life experiences, and all trying to just succeed, whatever it takes. And it's just amazing to, number one, hear their stories, and number two, more interestingly, hear their questions of what they're grappling with. I love the Matt Brown Show. I think it's one of the most important things that we're doing for entrepreneurial advancement in South Africa at the moment.